All right, so welcome to the live stream. We'll be discussing over the high time frame analysis for all the pairs as we did in the previous streams as well. So let's begin first with dollar index, right? So last week in the last stream, I told you that price is going to get to 100.643, right? So price has fulfilled the objective. The streams are live and recorded, so you can go and check them out if you haven't. Now, talking about where dollar index will go next, I believe we're probably due for a retracement. All right, so after retracement, then we can actually think about whether price wants to, let's say, expand higher or it wants to push down lower, right? But the first thing that comes to mind is the retracement. But before we get into what price is going to do next, how did I call out this move, right? So it's actually quite simple. The first thing we noted down was this dealing range. We had a clear dealing range high. Price takes out liquidity, that is your dealing range high. Price takes out liquidity at the low, that is your dealing range low. You split that into half, you have your 50%. Price taps in to the 50%. That means the objective from external liquidity to internal liquidity has been completed. All right, so you also have a nice fair value gap here, which price got into, then kind of worked its way through it, displaced higher, right? This displacement here, this fair value gap which forms here on the weekly time frame, that is your telltale sign that price wants to continue higher. This will most likely be price pushing higher, retracing to 50% and expanding higher once again. So that was confirmed upon this formation of this weekly fair value gap. So then price gets into it. We have a nice gap. Price expands higher, just as I told you. We have closed above this bearish weekly fair value gap as well. All right, so that is another sign which you can look for. Then price closed right here after taking out previous week's high on the 8th of June, the previous week's weekly candle. Then the current week, or now would be previous week, price takes out previous week's low. Right, it is a really important liquidity pool. It takes it out, taps and fills this fair value gap, right? So kind of have the exact same thing we had here. We have that here. So price taps into it, expands higher to the objective I outlined, right? So as I mentioned, these are one of those scenarios where you should be quite confident with your bias. So you will not really be able to figure out if price is going to push higher or lower, let's say here, right? So once price gets here, you are not able to clearly define if it wants to move, let's say, to this low or to this high, right? You need to wait for more information. So in that case, what did price do next? We had an inside weekly candle. Price pushed up higher into a bearish weekly fair value gap, expanded quite aggressively. So this expansion here, or this distribution here, right here, on this candle, everyone would be bearish there, right? If you're trading patterns, it doesn't matter if it's ICT concepts, it doesn't matter if it's support and resistance. You see that prices expanded quite aggressively at this large bearish reaction. Immediately your mind goes to say that we're probably going to reach these lows, right? But that's not really going to be the case because we have just fulfilled an retracement into a weekly bearish fair value gap and expanded, right? That is all that has happened. So once price takes this low right here, the objective has been filled. We have another candle where price takes out sell side liquidity pool. Then upon this closure here, so which is until and unless price formed or closed this candle right there, you will not be able to know the bias if it's going to push to this high or this low, right? So once this candle closes, that is when you know, all right, we have a bullish weekly fair value gap. Price will most likely react from it and push higher because the order flow is still intact. Right? We have nice dealing range. So all of that comes into play. And of course, you can also drop down to your lower time frames and you will have a clear sense of direction as well. So you'll be able to mark out your entries at that point. You will know that price wants to, let's say, push from a fair value gap, a 4-hour CIST, a 1-hour CIST, all of that stuff, right? But without understanding that price needs to, let's say, push higher, after the weekly fair value gap, you will not know the clear direction as to where price is going, right? So that is my take on dollar index. That is really how I was able to call this move. All of this is live. So if you want the live commentary, you can go back and check that as well. But for now, price is taken out by sell liquidity. I'm expecting a short retracement. All right, just a short one from here, and then we'll see what happens. Now, why is this a short retracement? Why do I not expect, let's say, price to push lower to the 50% of this daily, right? Why is that? The reason for that is because the current week has taken out the previous week's low and previous week's high, right? So this is what we call an outside weekly candle. So price has fulfilled the objective lower and higher. So which means the following candle or in the following week, we are most likely going to have a consolidation or a small candle, right? So you have a small candle, large candle, large candle, small candle, small candle, large candle, right? Expansion, consolidation, expansion, consolidation, expansion, and once again, we expect consolidation. So let's move to Euro USD, and this is what we had marked out, right? So what did price do? We're really close to the objective. We've not really fulfilled it. I'm quite aware of that. But dollar index has fulfilled this objective, all right? So which means that Euro does not need to meet sell liquidity, and this is kind of an advanced concept in terms of SMT, where price doesn't need to fulfill this low because dollar index has fulfilled its correlated high, right? Because Euro USD and dollar index are mostly correlated. But in my opinion, I do believe we'll take out these lows, and the exact same thing is occurred here, right? We have a weekly bearish fair value gap. Price tapped into it, expanded. Once again, we don't have a gap here, but we do have that on dollar index, right? So this is one of those concepts which I'd like to get into today, where you will not really be able to spot those clear fair value gaps all the time, right? So what do? That you check its correlated pair. So usually in this case, right, let's just take this example. Euro USD has taken previous week's high, right there, and expanded lower to the objective. Now the objective was given to you before, you know you were bearish. So price takes a previous week's high, you are most likely going to see price move lower, right? That is fine. But you are, let's say you're not comfortable trading from highs and you're really comfortable, let's say, trading from fair value gaps. Now, what do then? You actually go to its correlated pair. So in this case, you would go to dollar index and you would see that dollar index has a fair value gap, right? So you're going to consider this fair value gap to be valid for price to push higher, and you're going to wait for Euro USD to probably take out a previous week's high, form an SMT divergence once it takes this high, and then you have your real nice move, right? And that is really how you frame setups when your preferred array is not presented, all right? So there's a key difference there. So Euro USD, I do believe we're going to push lower to these lows, so I'm watching for that. And GBP USD, you can see right here, this was the objective outlined last week, right? So at this eye right here, somewhere there, right? I believe on the daily time frame it's quite clear, so I'll get to that. So what do we have here? Previous weekly fair value gap. When everyone was bullish, we were really bearish, right? Not using any fancy indicators, you don't need any of that. You just need to understand price, okay? So price taps into a weekly fair value gap, takes out this low, right? Pushes quite aggressively. Now this low, as I mentioned in the previous week, is an objective as well, and this low as well, right? I do believe these lows are in play next, and price should get them, okay? So you can see we have engineered liquidity here. So what does engineered liquidity mean? We have a low here, and we have a low right above it, right there. Okay, so this means that price has engineered this liquidity. Retail will see this as support, right? Your books would tell you that this is really support because price has reacted here once, and we're pushing lower and we reacted again, right? But that's not how it's going to play out. It's going to push through it, right? So with that in mind, I am bearish for GBP USD as well, and I am bearish on Euro USD to this objective as well, right? So let's get to the daily time frame. See how beautiful this is. Here we have a nice weekly fair value gap. We have Monday forming the high of the week, and price expands low, right? So once again, this objective has been met. I'll clear this out for now, and we expect price to get to these lows, right? Just keep it to the higher time frames. That is what will really give you the direction, right? You have this low, so watch this low here. And after that, of course, be sure to watch this low on Euro USD as well, right? So that is it for Euro USD and GBP. That is for Forex. Now let's move to NASDAQ, right? So NASDAQ right here, right? This is really, really good. I quite like it. What have we here? Price has closed above. Wait, let me just remove this. Wait, I need to actually adjust it. I need to adjust these levels right here. So let me just quickly do that. Just moving it to the latest contract. Right, so we have a nice fair value gap right there, which price has closed above, and we have a clear defined high, right? So this is really where you can actually call this price reclaiming a level, right? I believe there was a concept that way, which is not quite popular, but you definitely have that here. What do you have here? You have a bearish daily fair value gap. I'm sorry. Price has closed above it, pushed lower, retested it, and is moving higher, right? So this is one of the scenarios where I will consider this to be a real move. And what is my draw for Nasdaq? Quite simply put, this high, right? So I believe that Nasdaq is going to make new all-time highs, and the reasoning for that is quite simple. We have a nice displacement here. You see 1, 2, 3, 3 candles right there, bullish fair value gap formed. We have a nice volume imbalance. This is your volume imbalance right there. Price has tapped into it and has showed willingness that it wants to push higher. All right. So you can see we have another test here. So this just tells me that price wants to push higher. We have this high right there, this high right there. Price should really just smash it higher to take out these highs, right? Moving to ES, quite have the same thing here. Objective is going to be this high for ES. The exact same thing here. And ES seems to have pushed or retraced quite more aggressively, right? So this just means that it's going to take some time to get to the same objective that Nasdaq has to push through. So in this case, we just expect price to push higher to this high, right? So we just watch for this high in the next week, and then we can expect Nasdaq to get there. Now, what if price, let's say, starts pushing lower, right? When will I change my bias? So how am I going to do that? Really simple. We have this low right here. Let's say that price closes below this low, right? That's what I'm expecting. If price closes through this low, then I believe these highs are safe and price needs to push lower. But if price opens, pushes lower, and manages to, let's say, push back higher, right? And that means that this was just liquidity being cleared out before an aggressive expansion higher, okay? So you should always be aware of both the scenarios and what you should do as to the current scenario. So you will get more information on a Monday. So price, let's see what it does on a Monday. If Monday just consolidates, you can expect Tuesday to take out Monday's high and Monday's low and frame your bias for the week that way. Or you're always going to approach the market with initial bias this way, but you'll always be ready to change it if price shows you what you're looking for, right? So that is Nasdaq and ES, quite simple. I'm expecting price to expand higher to take out this high. ES expanding higher to take out this high for the next week. All right. So let's have a look at gold. So this is quite great for gold. We have literally pushed all the way here, and I believe from here I've called it here on the live stream. This objective has been met, and as I mentioned in the previous week, we can expect a retracement as we have, and we are moving lower. Once again, the final objective for gold is going to be this low. All right. Once price reaches this low, I will not be looking at gold once again on the streams as well. So this low is what I'm expecting price to get to, and it should in the next week, right? Moving on to silver, see the objective has been met on silver. We have just retraced into a daily fair value gap. That is all I use, highs, lows, and gaps, but the correct ones, right? And I expect silver to crash as well to take out this low and these lows. So about 57.965, that is a draw for silver. That is where I expect silver to push through, all right? So gold and silver, clearly defined, nothing else to look forward to, all right? Let me know if you have any questions in the chat and I'll answer them as well, right? So Bitcoin, what do we have for Bitcoin here? Same exact thing, weekly fair value gap pushed through. We have another fair value gap which price is working its way to, but I'm not interested here. I expect clear closures before forming a direction. So in this case, let's say price closes through this low, then I would expect price to crash once again. Or if not, this is going to be consolidation, right? We have expansion, consolidation, expansion, consolidation. So we have expanded here. Price will most likely, let's say, we trace to the 50% and consolidate. All right. That's also what's going to happen here. So you definitely don't want to be trading at this point or frame your direction at this point, because price can easily push higher here and then move lower, or price can, let's say, push lower here and move higher, right? So this is a scenario you should definitely avoid, and you should be willing to trade at these times, right? Right when I told you, because it's just basically a mindset shift. Whenever you see these large bullish candles, your mind automatically tells you that, all right, we're going to move higher. But once you have your clear, let's say, premium and discount marked out, for value gaps marked out, it makes it really easy, right? So in this case, let's say Bitcoin pushes higher to this premium, right? 50%, then I will definitely be bearish and I'll expect price to move this way. Or let's say price just crashes lower and it closes through this low, right? And that is when I'll be bearish. Or else I'm just going to remain neutral here and I'm not going to frame any bias at this point, right? So moving on to Ethereum. The objective has been met for Ethereum as well. And you can see Ethereum is more willing to push lower, right? And I believe that 1.4 is the draw for Ethereum, and that is where it should get to. After that, we have to reevaluate on what we're going to do next, all right? So the draw is still lower for Ethereum. For Bitcoin, we're neutral. Just for a quick recap, silver, we are bearish. Gold, we are bearish to the objectives. And ES and NASDAQ, we are bullish, right? It's quite weird, but that is really the situation we are in. I believe there's a lot of manual intervention occurring with the US stock markets. So we are bullish. It doesn't matter what it is. We're just going to take advantage regardless of price, whether it moves higher or lower, right? So NASDAQ and ES, we are bullish, surprisingly. And GBP USD, we are bearish to these lows, engineer liquidity. And Euro USD, we are bearish to these lows as well, right? That is all it is. And dollar index has, of course, met the objective, right? So do take a note of everything I've told you in the stream and let me know if you have any questions and I'll just read the chat. Right. Ninja says, thank you. Yeah, anytime, Ninja. We'll just do this once every week. All right. Gabriel has a question. How do you confirm daily bias on the daily for direction before engaging a trade for that day using the developments of Asia, London, and New York? All right. So there are a couple of daily profiles, right? I basically like to choose one which is quite favorable. So in my book, that is going to be the London manipulation profile, where London takes out Asia's highs and lows, and it's going to form your low of the day. And then I have a clear bias that, all right, for the rest of the day, we're going to push higher. So in that case, New York, I would expect price to move higher and so on and so forth, right? But if London is not able to form the higher low of the day, I expect New York to do that. And that will be a New York manipulation profile. And that is all I do, right? You can also trade the New York continuation profile, which is pretty good, but that can be quite tricky, right? So if you want me to show you an example, I probably could do that. So let's just actually consider one for Euro USD. And yeah, so this is great. We have a good example here. So this is a classic example of London manipulation. And this was a trade which I did not take, all right? But I did outline it perfectly. So let me just show it to you how it looks like. So we have a true day opening price right here, okay? So you always have to mark this out. And let's say you have your Asia's range right about here, which is right there, right? So you have a nice, beautiful Asia range. Not really the most ideal one you want to see because we did expand quite a bit, but price pushes lower and this is your 1 AM 4-hour candle. So that is really where we form this swing low, but price pushes higher, forms a nice fair value gap, right? We just had a look at my post recently on Twitter. I did mention that the fair value gap is going to be a resistance entry point. This is why we have price tap it right to it and expand higher to take out Asia's high. This is your London manipulation profile because London forms the low of the day. And you're just trying to view price in terms of accumulation, manipulation, and distribution, right? This will be your accumulation. This will be your manipulation. Hold on. Yeah, this will be your manipulation right about there till your 5 AM candle or 6 AM candle, whatever. And then the rest will be your distribution, right? So in this case, you would most likely want to trade London manipulation profile, you do not want to trade, or it is not favorable to trade New York session, right? This will be a New York continuation because New York follows the same direction that London has formed. So in this case, we have a nice swing low. So if you actually enter right here, that will be the best trade for you for the day, right? Because you have nice risk to reward all the way here, 3 hour and moving forward, right? You don't really need that. Now, New York continuation, you can definitely be a part of it, but the risk to reward will be quite less, all right? So you do have, let's say, a fair value gap right here, price taps into it, expands higher, and you want to trade after, let's say, 8:30. So it's going to be quite difficult, right? There is price action right here, which you can take advantage of, but it's definitely not as clean as what London is, right? So you have accumulation, manipulation, and distribution. All right. Okay, Ninja has a question. Range here means price should range or just high or low of the target. Price should range, right? It means it should not form new highs and new lows within that session. To define what a range is, a range should not form new highs and new lows, or let's say new significant high or a new significant low during that time window. So this right here is a range, all right? See, it doesn't form any significant highs or lows. Yes, it forms this high, but you can see it's a wick. You can see that it is really just staying in the same place, right? That is a range. In Asia's range or Asia's time window, to keep it simple or to not confuse you here, we did push lower, right? Let's say right here, we reacted off of a value gap and pushed lower, right? And formed a new significant low. And that is not what a range is, right? This is a range. This is just expansion. That is going to be it for the stream, guys. All right. So I'll just wait for a minute if you have any more questions, or else we can just end the stream. All right. Okay, Gabriel has a question once again. How do you confirm the London reversal? Just the fair value gap. The fair value gap will show you willingness that price wants to move higher, right? That's what you can do. Sure, there are other confirmations you can use. You have your, let's say, liquidity being taken out and price forms an SMT divergence, or on the dollar index, we do have an SMT, or let's say dollar index has reached a significant level, and that means euro does not need to reach that, and then you can wait for a fair value gap and price will move higher. But to simply put, you can just wait for a fair value gap, right? That would be the easiest way to go forward. All right, that should be it. Well, thank you all for joining. Do drop a like in the live stream session if you do enjoy these, and I will see you all once again in the next week. And this week is going to be quite better with price action, especially since we had a nice bank holiday on Friday, right? So expect a lot of volatility Monday forward. So I will speak to you all then. Do take care and stay safe, and have a great week ahead, all right? Bye-bye.